All right, welcome back. A
Welcome
little
back.
holiday season of Project Stories.
Yes. And it's December, and we're in Seattle, Washington.
Yes, you might notice we're both wearing sweaters.
Yes, it's very cold,
But
but it
it's a
isn't
nice,
raining today,
yeah, it's
which
a
is
nice day.
nice. I
Yeah,
mean, we are in Seattle, so we
we
do have
are.
a lot of rain.
But we're gonna revel in this cold but
Yeah,
sunny-ish day.
absolutely.
Well, you were in Arizona for a
Right,
couple months, and now you're
right.
home, and we're gonna try and get some fun videos with some special guests coming on.
Yes,
Um, but for
if we can rope them in,
Oh,
because
I've already
it's
had a
not.
couple. My agents are calling their agents
Oh,
as
okay,
we speak.
okay. Well, the,
So if we can,
these are busy people.
these are. Well, but today we are, for the fourth time,
Yes.
going to try and record a video about our dear
Your great
Anna. I was
grandma.
gonna say Anna Caroline.
Is it
No,
great
my
great?
great, yeah,
Yeah, great.
grandmother, because your
His
grandmother.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and Anna Caroline will do a two-part series. To reiterate, this is our fourth time trying to nail this video, but I have a good feeling about this one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're going to try and do it in under 10 minutes, but look, we're already a minute and a half in. We're just
I know,
chatting, aren't
you're
we?
just like,
Okay, so maybe 12-minute goal.
right.
We'll see how we do.
Right.
So let's waste no other time and dive right in
All
to
right.
the beginning. I know you want to start us off with kind of the
Yes,
beginning of Anna
yes.
Caroline's story of coming to
Yes.
America.
Well, my grandmother, when she was 24 years old, she was living just south of Christiana, which is now Oslo, and it was 1889. And they had decided as a family that she was going to the United States. Uh, and that must have been a huge decision that
Yeah.
that family made, because she was the oldest. There were younger children, and she was 24 years old, and she was a nurse. She had
Yeah.
gone back to school. She had gone back to Christiana from her farm, which is and she had gone to school and become a midwife and a nurse. So she
That's
was
so cool.
yes. So
Well, and I like
she
to-
was. I mean, even when you think about 24 years old at those years, usually women were, not
Married.
Yeah, they were married. They weren't working.
Yeah,
but she was
married
working.
with babies. I mean, a
Yeah.
24-year-old, you're like,
Yeah.
already kind of getting old,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
wild to think. But
Right.
I mean, I love to wonder the circumstances of why Anna Caroline
Yeah,
came
decided.
to America, especially at 24, and especially after kind of like pursuing a career
Yes.
at a time when that was such a
Yes,
novelty.
yes.
But
But there were a lot of things going on in Norway at the time, and there had been a lot of bad droughts. I think that there was a time when people were really struggling,
yeah,
and so up came this 1862 Homestead Act,
yep,
and which opened the doors for
Yeah.
immigrants to come to the United States, because if they came, they could get a plot of land
yeah,
and farm it, and that's
Yeah.
why
Ugh,
she went
jealous.
to North Dakota.
Yeah,
Because I think she might have there was some Gullicksons there, and she was a Gullickson. So I think there might have been
there's
somebody
some
that she knew
relatives.
there.
Yeah. So she had a point of She wasn't just coming
No.
willy nilly. Of course,
No.
there was
She
a
had
plan.
She had
But-
an end
Yeah,
where she was going.
but the most fascinating part of this is the journey, though. The journey that
Yes,
she took
yes.
to get over here.
Yes. She got on a ship, and the ship was called Denmark, Danmark. And it came actually from the UK originally, probably London, and came around and picked up quite a few different people. A lot of young people, a lot of young
Yeah.
men, not women, but a lot of young men, because they were able to do this adventure,
Yeah.
and they could work
And they could work. Yeah.
their way across
Yeah.
the ocean. So the Denmark was supposedly held over 700 people. So this was not a little boat.
huge.
This is a
boat.
huge,
Yeah.
700 and some people in this boat. The captain's name was Knutson, and the crew. There was a purser, a physician. I found all this out.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, a cook, 2 stewardesses, a baker, a butcher, and engineers, and so she was able to work as a midwife,
As
and
a
a nurse,
yeah,
and get free passage.
So cool.
So she,
Had her
signed
medical
up.
kit and
She had her medical kit in a big trunk.
with all of her earthly belongings.
Yeah, and
And
all those.
wasn't there a little precursor? Wasn't there like something that happened with the boat before they left? There was a little mechanical issue, but
yes, and
they fixed it.
They fixed it, but she had heard. The other thing that was problematic with this whole journey is everybody spoke different languages.
Yeah.
So
Or really fascinating, depending on the situation.
A lot of them were English speaking.
Yeah.
And there were Danish people and Germans and all kinds of different, pretty much Northern European people. But so she picked up things that she'd heard, but she wasn't quite sure what she had heard, if she knew.
Yeah.
So, but she heard them talking that this was supposed to be a new boat. It wasn't. It was not doing well at all. And so
perfect for a journey across the ocean.
So within about 6 days in, maybe a little bit longer, they actually started out in March. And
so cold.
Yeah, the 25th of March, the end of March. And so by April 5th, they ran into problems. They heard a big bang.
Yeah.
And something started changing in the ship, and everything was going like the ink was coming down, I guess, across the table and went on the floor. Those are the little things that she wrote in her
in her story,
stories.
Which we do have a first-hand account
of her story.
Yeah.
And so they weren't sure what had happened, but with 700 people, they had come up with that something happened down in the engine room.
Yeah, an important room. No matter what language you speak, you can know that that's an important area.
They put up a distress signal. In those days, of course, there wasn't any way to get a hold of anybody excepting by flag. So this was a flag. And a big ship came by and decided to come and help them. And this was a freighter. It was not.
But at this point, so what they heard, the rumor mill, right, was that something happened in the engine room.
Right.
But this big bang might have been someone like shooting themselves, right? And but the long story, what actually happened is something happened with the engine and it like fell out of the boat, right?
Yeah.
Which led a gaping hole
in the
to
bottom.
be filled up with water.
Right.
So no matter what actually happened, right? The boat started sinking. Yeah. And I wonder how much.
A shaft. A shaft was broken.
Whatever that means, But what we know is that, even through the rumor mills of this boat, at some point they all understood, oh, this boat's sinking, right? So, and the distress sign went up, and
and the captain then within hours said, "We're sinking, and we have to throw all our belongings overboard." So this is they came to the United States forever, so they had these big trunks, so all those trunks.
With everything that you were going to bring. No one was shipping you a box later, right?
No.
You weren't waiting for UPS to deliver your sofa. This was it.
This was it.
Yeah, and now this was gone.
And it's gone. So all they had was the clothes that they had on, and she had her satchel, which was
her medical bag.
Her medical bag. So they started to tow them. They thought they could go to St. Michael's.
What was this other boat called?
That's the Missouri.
The Missouri. So
it was a big freighter, and it had a few people on it, but not many. And it had a lot of stuff.
A lot of goods.
A lot of goods.
Goods to be traded.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that had been bought by people in Philadelphia or around Philadelphia because they ended up in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Denmark started to sink a little bit by little bit. They tried to tow it. That didn't work. It was just bad weather, and they couldn't tow it very far.
And there was 700 people on it. It was like a big-ass boat.
Yeah, really. And so they decided that the only way they're going to get this, they couldn't stop the sinking of boats. So they're going to have to take all those 725 people off the Denmark and put them on the Missouri.
Yeah.
And how they did that was amazing. And if you look this up on Google, Dr. Google, you will find out.
Dr. Google?
Yeah. I always look up my stuff on Dr. Google.
Oh.
Anyway, you will find that there was, in all of this, just an amazing amount of how we're going to get 700 people from this failing ship that's going down to this other ship. How do you do that?
Well, and I think there's even a picture of kind of this happening, right? And before they could bring all those people on the boat onto this already very full boat, they had to throw all of the goods overboard.
Yes.
And like it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars, which in 1889 was millions of dollars, right? Worth of goods. Yeah. But that is the maritime law, right? That I think we'll have to ask Sherry about from one ship to another.
Right.
But so after they had dumped all their personal stuff, now this boat's dumped all of their goods.
Yeah.
They start this crazy transfer.
Yeah, and they had these big, boats that they could take out people. Yeah. So it looked like, and there's a picture of it in that. I mean, just look up 1889, the Denmark or the Missouri, and you'll find a big article and a picture. Yeah. And the picture shows a pretty good sized rowboat. Yeah, that would hold about 10 people at a time. Yeah, and that they would come down the ladder from the Denmark and go into a big boat, and then they would take them over. And they had to keep these ships apart because of the wind. Yeah, and it wasn't waves.
A nice day.
It was not a nice day. So what they did to get them from that boat to the other boat is that they actually put slings. Yeah. So or ropes around their waist. Yeah. Anyway.
So you're like sitting on a rope being pulled up the side of a ship.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
To be welcomed to a boat that had nothing, right? Yeah. Like it wasn't set up for a bunch of humans. So. No.
And Captain Knudsen was the last person to leave. They got them all on board. No deaths. Nobody got hurt.
In fact, actually...
5 hours they did it.
Oh my gosh.
5 hours it took them.
Yeah, and not one person fell overboard or It's so amazing.
Yeah. And they have, if you look in the papers, in New York paper, Philadelphia paper, there's one in the San Francisco paper about this whole thing. I mean, there's just like a lot of little incidences that happen that we're not going to go into here, but it's very, very interesting.
Oh my gosh, so interesting. And not only did they didn't lose one person this whole voyage. I'm pretty sure not one person died, and in fact, one person was born.
Yeah, and one person was born.
Which is, we're 100% certain that Anna Karoline was there for that birth. Yeah. Which is just kind of neat to think about.
Yeah. But anyway, the captain of the Missouri was called Captain Murrow, and he was a young guy, about 26 years old.
Wow.
In my head, I always thought, this would make such a cute story, a love story.
Tangent.
Captain Murrow and my grandmother getting together aboard this ship.
Wow, can you imagine?
Wow.
Let's write that novel. I would read that. A good little romantic period, historical fiction.
Yeah. They probably didn't even ever talk because they didn't speak the same language.
That's true.
But anyway.
So after they had loaded everyone out up onto this boat, they still had several week voyage. And in fact, didn't they stop quickly
yes. Well,
in the Azores?
The problem was there were the 725 people aboard. Now the Missouri, they didn't have the goods to feed these people. Oh, yeah. This is a lot of people to feed.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have any room for them. There were some places for them to stay, but most of them had a camp outside on top of the, So they decided they would go to the Azores and drop them off at St. Michael's.
Which is just like in the middle of the ocean.
It's
this
right
tiny
in the middle,
little Azores. Yeah. And they dropped off
about 300, over 300. And a lot of the people they dropped off were the young men.
Yeah.
And then somebody was going to make sure that those people got picked up.
Yeah.
And brought at a later time.
Talk about an adventurous surprise layover in the Azores.
So then they took off right away, and they had pretty good weather throughout, and they had bought goods there for more food for the people, but then they only had to feed half of them. Yeah. So it was a lot easier.
I imagine a tumultuous journey from there to, where did they end up landing?
And Philadelphia.
And so how long was it, the whole journey?
Well, it almost took a month. I figured out they started about the 25th of March, and I think it was the end of April before they actually got there.
Wow.
And normally I would say that would have been maybe a 2-week journey.
Yeah.
I'm not sure,
but that sounds right.
Yeah, with all their issues.
Yeah. But the welcoming in Philadelphia was quite wonderful.
So they had heard, as this ship came in, the ship notified somebody, I think in the first harbor where they came in, that these were the people that were supposed to be coming like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they had all these relatives waiting for them to come, and they never arrived. But nobody knew what happened.
Oh my God.
So they were all standing, so the word got out.
Yeah.
That, these were the people from the Denmark, and they were families. Yeah. There were older couples, and there were some young men, and then the crew. So, the crew from the Denmark actually got off in St. Michael's.
Yeah.
But all these other people had people waiting for them.
Yeah.
Because they were young people and there were old people, and so but they all lined up on the docks and watched the ship come in.
Wow.
I mean, they just had yelling and screaming and
it's
clapping.
Kind of almost like a miracle at this point.
Oh,
that this 700-person boat sank.
Yeah.
That was carrying all of these immigrants, and not one person died.
No.
And then they had this amazing welcoming to the States.
Yeah. And this Captain Merle, they loved Captain Merle because he was quite shy and quite, and he was very handsome, I guess. And he was one of those people that when he spoke, I heard him speak, or I read his speeches. Yeah. And he was always, anybody would have done this. These are wonderful people, very humble. Yeah. And, and these people that were aboard that ship loved him because he was very kind.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of,
it was kind of a famous story. I mean, you briefly mentioned earlier that it was in newspapers all around the country. So you can absolutely Google 1989, 1889, Denmark or Missouri boats sinking, right? And you'll find these articles that mention like many other little stories and tidbits. Yeah. And I'll take a picture and scan. Anna Karoline, did she write it and maybe someone typed it up for her?
Yeah, she wrote it and somebody typed it up.
Yeah, so there's a neat kind of firsthand of Anna Karoline, and there's unique things that she wrote that weren't totally correct based on all the other research we've done. Like, this froze. Like about how she thought it was the cows, or right?
Oh, the cows. Yeah, she thought she heard cows when everybody was throwing things overboard, and she heard cows, and so she thought this freighter was full of cows. But there probably was a few cows, but it was. And I doubt
they would have thrown those over. Actually, they probably would have needed to keep those for all this. But so that's kind of an interesting thing, and I'll be sure to add that to the notes. But look, okay, we're over time, but still our best one yet.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to make sure people knew just about this journey? Because we'll share.
Okay, the journey.
I feel like we did a good job covering it.
Yeah, I think that's and there's just so much about it in the newspapers that it's kind of, and I've got copies of all the newspapers. It's just a treasure.
Yeah.
When they interviewed all these people, and their stories were just, because they were all, by the time they got into Philadelphia, they'd been sleeping outside, probably over tarps.
Yeah.
And they looked bedraggled. The men all had, beards and.
Yeah, well, they've been spending 2 weeks of. Yeah, I can't even imagine. And
so
such a story of triumph.
Yeah.
To make it over to like this new life.
Right.
And I mean, imagine if that boat wasn't saved. I mean, our whole lineage of people would have died. Yeah, wouldn't have been here. And so it is the first reason why I just fell in love with Anna Karoline's story was this miracle of a journey over, right? And I think it is such a unique, cool thing when you talk about all the little pieces of your story that had to happen, you know, and like that's just such a cool one. So
and they when they finally got off the boat, they had this huge table laid out right on the dock, and they had food for all of them. It was just this huge thing with food for the people.
Oh my gosh, because they were probably really hungry for a good meal.
And then the lines, both the Missouri and the Denmark lines, were made sure that all these immigrants were put on wherever they wanted to go. And it was a free passage for them, of course. And
on a train.
On a train someplace. And most of them were going west.
Yeah.
So they were going over probably the northern part of the United States, probably on the Great Northern Railroad. And they then she got into... where she was going, which was Adams, North Dakota.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in part 2, so stay tuned.
Yes.
All right, well, I think we did it.
I think we did.
Anna Karoline's journey to America.
And number 4 worked.
Number 4, fourth time's a charm. Okay, we'll see you back here for your next installment on Anna Karoline.